Hi everyone, this is Lydia Gross for our Personal and Professional Growth Project and presentation. Today I will be discussing your personal values and educational philosophies, and I will be discussing my values and philosophies and hope to get you to think about yours as well. So to start off, it's important to define what a value is. And a value, according to Dr. Johnson, is what we find to be of importance or of value. Values are essentially what drive us and are the basis for what we do every day. This specifically is the basis for our worldview and also our philosophy of teaching, which we'll get into later. So as we're going through this, think about what are some of your values? What are the things you find to be important in your life? And here's a list that I came up with, just a short list of some of my values and values that you might share too. Maybe you value faith as well. Maybe you value family, service, discipline, friends, relationships, fun, all those things. According to the article, there was a list of values to choose from, and these are really some values that I chose. And I chose faith, service to others, self-discipline, and optimism. And in this picture, I included it because it's what has instilled in so many of the values I have now in my life. This is the volleyball team I played for in college, and before each game we would pray, and everything we did was for our faith, to be disciplined, and to give glory to God with the talents He gave us. And this college experience was really what instilled these values in me. So think about what are some of your values, and we have to define what are personal versus professional values. Now, professional values are what you value in a teaching and learning situation, and personal values are usually what guide our behavior. Now, personal values are often really behind our professional values. For example, a personal value for me is to be disciplined. Now, I not only take this into my personal life with fitness, health, self-care, but with how hard I work professionally, how best I communicate with my colleagues, and how I leave the day knowing I did a job well done. So since professional values relate to how you teach and act with your colleagues, these are my professional values. I would say exploration, a hardworking attitude, and social interactions. And included here, I have a picture of my coworkers actually who all display these professional values, and I find that really important. So as you're going through this, think about what professional values do you find important? Do you value honesty, courtesy, creativity? Maybe it's also a hardworking attitude and those social interactions that are really important to you. Now notice that how my professional values are different from my personal values, and how in all areas of life I found it important to work hard at what you do. But I also find it important to get to know others. However, in work more than my professional life, I find it important to explore new ideas and brainstorm. So moving on, we're going to look at educational philosophies now. So to define it, your educational philosophy is what drives you to teach the way you teach and is the basis for how you teach and look at education. It's the reason behind our actions as teachers, essentially. And your educational philosophy answers these questions. It talks about why do we educate people? How should we educate people? What ethical guidelines should be used? How should we measure? And how does education affect society? So I'm going to outline my educational philosophy, and I'll bear with me here. I'm going to answer these questions. The purpose of education, goals that I will have for education, my principles of education, and some action statements based on these principles. So my purpose of education, I believe, is to help learners become self-sufficient members of society. And with that comes with that schools exist to be an advocate between students and the rest of society, helping them to one day contribute to their community with their gifts and talents. And we especially need to focus on developing these talents within students with special needs. We help society to be a more inclusive place when we do this, and we help students to be more independent. For goals, a short-term goal I have is for students to know the skills and strategies that will enable them to function in a general education classroom with little support. What I mean by this is students start out in a special education classroom if they have high needs, and the goal is to get them out of that classroom and to be able to function in a general education classroom. Essentially, the goal is to sort of get me out of a job so that less students need services. And although this is really unlikely, it's sort of a way to look at education in a way that students are always growing and changing. A long-term goal is for all children to grow up with a higher sense of how to self-regulate. This is so important because when students can self-regulate their emotions, they can express their needs through words instead of violence, anger, and some self-destructive or destructive tendencies. Now with principles, There are a lot of principles that I hold, but first of all, it's my belief that all students are capable of growth, no matter their level of functioning. This is students who are maybe in a wheelchair and totally nonverbal, to students who are high functioning, or students who are even gifted and talented. Another one is teachers should always see the good in students before the bad, and they should base their teaching off of these strengths first. And this is an approach a lot of teachers hold, but I really believe that if teachers were to look at the strength that students have and build off of those before finding the negative, then I think teachers would not only be happier, but students would be happier and would grow more. Another one is that students are always communicating something, whether positive or negative, through their words, their actions, their assignments, maybe drawings they make, their body language, their play. All of it is communicating something, and it's really important that we observe that as teachers. Moving on, it's vital for children to learn imaginative play and social skills before cognitive skills in the preschool age. Now, I'm going to school to be an early childhood special ed teacher, so this is really important to me because at the preschool age, imaginative play is so much more important than math or than any cognition skills. Imaginative play helps your brain grow, it helps your brain have more plasticity. It's really just a research-driven thing. Next, teachers should be vigilant in observing behaviors and their function, and this goes along with how everything is a communication as a child. Moving on, teachers, though they are an integral part of a student's life, cannot be the end-all. And what I mean by this is, even though some students can struggle or have really bad home lives or really need their teachers, teachers cannot do everything for their students. They're simply, not simply, but they're a lot of times the middleman or just the advocate. And lastly, teachers are not meant to work alone. They need to collaborate with other professionals, and collaboration is the key to that success. It's really important, I think, to ask for help from other professionals, pick their brains about things, and to really just be a collaborative teammate in a special ed situation. So moving on, action statements. So based on these principles, I want to strive to have high expectations for students, commit myself to research all the time that's current and relevant. I want to plan and implement lessons that focus on those social skills and that imaginative play. I always want to be observant of behaviors, and I want to be a collaborative team member and asking for help when it's needed and offering help when it's welcomed. So in closing, values are what you find to be important. Our values drive us every day, and educational philosophy is what we find to be important in teaching and learning and influences the way we teach. So I'd encourage you guys to think about what your values are, not only in your personal life, but your professional life. And also because, as Roy Disney said, it's not hard to make decisions once you know what your values are.